What up?
And just a long weekend with stuff, but not doing good, bro. Okay.
I could take the glasses off.
I,
I had to make sure you weren't about to try to out studious me coming on with the quarter zip. Coming with that.
I'm not gonna lie, I was thinking about it, and I didn't
I
know
know
what
you
was,
were. I know you were.
I was gonna actually have the turtleneck and the vest on and everything, but I was like, you know what? And I just got some meta glasses too, and I was thinking about putting them things on, but I was like, you know what I'm
How you
saying?
like them? How you like them?
No, I think they're cool. I'm gonna start doing more. I'm gonna start doing a lot more content. I don't know. Like it's hard. It's hard, like just putting yourself out there like that.
No,
Yeah. Also
man, keep
too.
it PG-13. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Also, because I think what you're doing, this podcast is dope. There was something I sent you a while ago, but in Vegas, you can rent out like a podcast room where they have like the full layout and stuff like that too.
Yeah.
Um, I know you kind of just starting things off
Yeah,
right.
it's one of them things you gotta just jump straight in because you start
Uh,
trying to plan and think about it and never
no,
get
well, no,
done. So
no,
it
you
was it
100%
was
correct.
one of those ones. It's like, yo, I'm dropping the first one, the first Tuesday of the new year. Every Tuesday after that, I just gotta do what I got for right now and build on it.
No, you're right.
That's
Consistency is king, and then overthinking it and not doing
yeah.
what a lot of people do. Like, oh, I'm gonna do it here. Once I get everything perfect, then I'm gonna do it, and then all of a
It
sudden,
never get perfect because it's always gonna be something. Something always come up. There's always gonna be. But no, we'll jump in and get started. So, no, normally how I've been doing the format is I start off with like seven rapid fire questions. Yeah, the waves is good, man. They there. I see them on camera. Don't worry. They gonna be on. They
so
gonna be on
make
the
it short.
pod, man. People gonna know. They gonna be in the comments where he get his hair care routine from. Kamel, hook me up with the product.
Hey, that's the plan. You know what I'm saying? I put the big earring in today.
Yeah. No, so we're gonna kick it off with seven rapid fire questions. First one gonna be describe your personality with one word.
Tenacious.
Nation. All right. Meet aliens or speak to ghosts.
Meet aliens.
All right. What's your current age?
31.
As of right now, what are you the top 1,000 in the world?
Right now, I'm the top 1,000 in um, entrepreneurs who um, are building out deep tech companies.
I would agree. I mean, I would agree with that. Pullover hoodie or zip up hoodie?
Pull over.
Tequila or whiskey?
Tequila.
Gotta be tequila. And last one, increase creativity or increase intellect?
Increase intellect.
Good, good, good. It's funny how like the broad range of some of these questions be. The only one that's been real consistent has been tequila. I don't think I got a whiskey one yet.
I used to be whiskey for the longest. I think now, just like now that I'm in in that age where I'm kind of focused a lot more weight on health, and when you look
Yeah.
at tequila in comparison to whiskey and things like that, they're all not that great for you, but
No, no, yeah.
not as bad for you as whiskey is.
Yeah. I mean, all the little additives and the different little
Right.
flavors and coloring and sugar. Give me that.
So,
You gotta pay that top shelf for that Neho.
I honestly, over the weekend, it's New Year's, right? And so over the weekend, I actually purchased organic Blanco tequila. So
Or again, what they just grew the agave in the organic soil or something.
yeah, less preservatives or less pesticides around
Yeah.
that agave fruit and things like that. So
I saw y'all was at the y'all was shooting the guns and stuff out like the mountains and stuff. How was that?
it was cool. It was cool. We should definitely go one of these days. That's the cool thing about Nevada is like, obviously, not to get into politics and stuff like that, but a
I
lot
mean,
of
we can go there. It's called doing too much for a reason, but
yeah, no, I mean, it was fun. That's the unique thing about, even though it's, and I guess it was a swing state, but you can just drive out into the mountains and go shooting. We don't
just
have
go, yeah, just go fire off. Huh?
yeah, you don't have to go spend money going into, and I don't think people understand how expensive like shooting is in general. I mean, a box of
The bullets is crazy, man.
stuff, right? And then if you were to go to a facility or go to a shooting range, you already got to pay upwards to 100
Yeah,
bucks for that too. So yeah, now you just go out to the pit just past kind of like the M Casino. Um,
yeah.
kind of just pull out there and just shoot.
Now that was y'all artillery, or that y'all went with like a
No,
company?
that's us. We, you know what I'm saying?
Ooh,
Like I said,
y'all had some things out there.
you stay ready so you don't have to get ready. You know, you go.
Hey, that one had some things out there, boy. I was like, ooh.
Yeah, and that was half. That wasn't even half the arsenal. So yeah, we got a lot of weaponry for sure.
And you into guns? You like
I mean, to a certain extent, I wouldn't say I'm into guns, but I'm into the equilibrium when it comes to what guns can help facilitate.
okay.
In addition to that, like it's cool. I've always grown up around them. My dad was in the military for a little bit and stuff, and
Yeah,
so comfortability around guns and stuff has been facilitated at an early age. But I think the biggest thing for me, what guns do, it's a great equilibrium, our great equalization. And what that essentially is, like if you read like Genghis Khan and
yeah,
a lot of these books and stuff is, it gets to, we got to a point where at one point no more did fighting and things like that matter as much. And it kind of leveled the playing field to a certain extent.
yeah.
Now we're seeing a transition where I think moreover the leveled playing field is more, um, you know, what you can do from a legal standpoint.
Mm.
And I think that's just the world we live in and stuff like that. But yeah, but ultimately, yeah, I enjoy what guns can help facilitate. And I don't mean that in a way of like I'm gonna go and shoot someone or something like
No,
that.
no. But I mean, would you consider yourself a hobbyist, like in the sense of like the guns, like you kind of not necessarily collect them, but borderline. Can you take them apart, clean them, and do
Yeah,
all
yeah.
that?
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, for
yeah.
sure. I can take it apart.
Oh,
Yeah.
well then, yeah, you into guns then.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
you can take a gun apart and put it back together,
Yeah.
you into guns.
Nah, 100%.
Hey, that's a rare skill. I mean, at least in my
No,
world, what I'm saying? I don't know. You might be the only person I know that I've physically heard say they can do that. That's not on like TV or
I'm,
something.
I'm like that. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? I'm like that in multiple different avenues. But no, I can. Not each one, but like the ones that I'm familiar with, like a Glock or
yeah.
some rifle platform, similar to like an AR or something like that. I can.
No, that's cool. Yeah. Now, so one of the things I wanted to just kind of wanted to touch on, I know like a lot of, like you say, you a go-getter, personality tenacious. You like that. You got to like doing a lot of different things. Like just, and I'm the same way, but I just want to know like your perspective of, with you doing so much, do you ever, do you ever sit back and reflect and just kind of like, I mean, you 31, like you had multiple startups. You still got a couple of startups. You can speak politics. You can break a gun down and you can go fire up. Different rules and regulations. You play D1 football. Like all them different things. You ever sit back and be like, dang, or is it just like blinders on, hit full steam ahead, just keep going? Because if I can't get too comfortable.
Yeah. No, I think I have recently, and I think that's an important piece to do. And when I say in the past, like I haven't received a formal paycheck since 2021. And I was at the age of, I think I turned 27. Um, and so at that point, I really didn't slow down, right? Because I went into graduate school working in the federal government immediately. And so right after playing football, I went into grad school, but at the same time, I worked full time. And then right after doing that, I went into entrepreneurship and working in the federal government. So life didn't facilitate slowing down.
Yeah,
I think in order to see where you want to go, it's important, it's necessary per se, to be able to see, what you're doing. And if you can't see
yeah,
what you're doing, then it's going to be hard to go and make the most optimal decisions. And so recently, and I think really when I hit the age of 30, you hear a lot of guys say it too, like, man, when I hit 30 is when I really kind of started to have a different perspective on things. And it was
yeah,
very similar to me, as kind of, once I kind of got to that point, I kind of did take a chance where I was like, let me slow down and see what I want and what I want to do. And since then, it's been a regular routine. Like even just journaling and doing things like that has been
yeah.
something that's been a part of my monthly activities, just to make sure that I can plan out what I'm doing. Because sometimes you do too much, movement doesn't necessarily equal progress, and that has always,
Nah, yeah, that's 100% right there.
so yeah, no, so yeah, now I've recently slowed down to reflect, to make sure what I'm doing moves the needle.
Yeah. Now, was it because you turned 30, or did something happen around that time of 30, or you read something or just all the talks, or just kind of like I'm 30, you hit that milestone, it's like, all right, I need to start reevaluating things. Because
I,
usually something's like a trigger,
yeah,
sometimes
no, for
it's like a
sure.
health
I think it,
scare, it might be something, you lose a job, like something like that, or was it just like, damn, I'm 30?
I think it was a combination of both, but I think that was the when I hit 30 was the first time, and it just aligned perfectly without, unintentionally. And that was I raised capital for two companies at the same time, and that was
Yeah.
around the time when I hit 30. And once I hit that, which in a sense I wouldn't say was like a formal goal, but I got to a point where I felt like I understood to a certain extent, and I'm always learning. I'll never stop learning until I meet my creator, and even then, I'll still be learning and see what happens then. But I think when I made that accomplishment is when I felt like I understood a domain to a point where I
Mm.
put in those hours where I became
Yeah.
a subject matter expert, and that's something that I do. I'm an entrepreneur, and so.
Your 10,000 hours.
Right. Oh, 100%. And so I think once that feat was accomplished and then in alignment with kind of, hey, I'm at this point I want to start looking at, the world. Not that I want to look at the world differently, but like, hey, I'm at this point in life. Let me take a second and look back at what I have done and what I want to do. And so I think a combination of all those things happening at one time around the same time made me take a second to reflect.
How'd you get into entrepreneurship? Like for me, and a lot of people, of our background and that look like us, we don't really have entrepreneurs around us, or just even for the sake of to know what that actually means. Growing up, an entrepreneur to me was somebody owning a lawn service, or like the foreigners that owned all the gas stations and hair stores. That was like, it wasn't me starting a tech company, or it wasn't Steve Jobs. That was like foreign. He just was the CEO of Apple. Like you didn't look at him as an entrepreneur that Apple was once a startup and all those things. So like I didn't get a whiff of it until later, and because my friend asked me, it was like, yo, we can start a company, da da da. But I'm in my 30s at that time. Like you started like in your 20s. Like how did you? I mean, was that something you grew up around, or
It,
like how did you get
no,
around
no,
to?
I did, and it's a good question because it 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 helps with the uniqueness on how I grew up, right? So I grew up in East Palo Alto, California, which
Oh,
is
that's the heart.
right. It is, but it wasn't right. And what I mean by that is that East Palo Alto, California, was the murder capital of the United States in 1992, but it's
Mhm.
proximal to Stanford. It's near Palo Alto, California, because it's next door to Palo Alto, California, but they're in two different counties. So they're really two different cities. And so for me, I grew up in an environment where it was predominantly Black, Hispanic, Polynesian. I never went to a school with. I think there was one white person in my class my whole life in middle school from K through eighth. Uh,
That's wild.
and so, but again, this is in This is in East Palo Alto.
Yeah,
And so for me, I used to always say like you kind of seen the haves and have-nots and the disparity between rich and poor really really right there in front of you. And so for me, I didn't necessarily see it amongst people who looked like me, but being proximal to that, being able
yeah,
to be not too far from Stanford and see the tech giants and see what was out there. I was able to see kind of what I didn't have and what people like me didn't have, but also seeing that it was something that you can do. And so I think, getting the opportunity because I played college football to go to a private high school in Mountain View, California, which wasn't too far from Google, and being
mm,
exposed to that let me know what was out there. Didn't let me know immediately, that was something that I seen other people doing, but also, being blessed to have, parents in my life that did a lot of different things. We talk about doing too much. My mom was, working with in the government. She was city council. She was an activist. She was doing all those type of things that I was able to see at an early age. My dad was active in the community, coaching football, doing all those different types of things. So I knew what I was capable of doing, right? Even though people like me wasn't necessarily doing it, for me,
yeah,
that was instilled at an early age that there was an expectation to do, to exceed any type of stereotypical expectation that was put on people like us. And so for me, all I needed was the opportunity and not to wait for the opportunity, but to create the
yeah,
opportunity. And so I think that environment in itself of growing up in a place like East Palo Alto, California, but being proximal to those type of things. I think you and I talked about the Outlier book by Malcolm Gladwell.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely an outlier. Like you could be a study in Outliers 3 or something. You know?
Oh, for
Like
sure.
that's
For sure.
I mean that's like the liken to Bill Gates and Steve Jobs having access to the early
Yeah,
computers. There was only six of them in the world because one of the moms of the book club was a professor. Like that's like real. Like not everybody has that story.
no, for sure.
At
For
least
sure.
those details in there like that.
Not 100%. So yeah, so that was kind of how I got into it. And then also just the nature of being an informal entrepreneur at such a young age, right? I was the one, me and my twin brother, we were selling candy, we were selling top ramen noodles, we were selling all that type of stuff. So like I've always been a hustler, you know what I'm saying?
Now hold on. Man, I know 30, you like nine years younger, but hold where you was selling top ramen at? Like we sold candy. I mean, we had the drug dealer, we had everything. Like
Yeah,
I ain't heard nobody selling ramen as a kid.
oh
Like
no, we sold. That's what I'm saying. We sold all of it. So
yeah,
now, so Top Ramen was like, you used to buy the big box for 10 cents.
yeah.
You buy the big box from Smart and Final or Costco, and then when you got to school, supply and demand. So you can go home and I always sold it for $1, and they were like, well, I could go get it for 10 cents. We'll go get
He's
it for
like, well, go get it then.
couldn't get it for 10 cents. So it was the law of scarcity is the law of supply and demand. And so how we used to eat noodles back in the day is we would crunch them up and then put the seasoning on it and eat it like chips. And so that's kind of how
Y'all was just raw dog and top ramen.
raw dog and top ramen. And then it kind of slowed down because then there's the rumors of like it gave you worms
Yeah,
and stuff like that. But no, that's all. So sold top ramen. We had candy stores on both ends of our street. So I would buy candy and then flip candy, but it always came down to supply and demand.
yeah. No, that makes sense. Golly, selling top ramen. That's a new one. So
Mhm.
coming from that background though, when you got the scholarship and went to Washington State and BYU, was it like a culture shock? Was it like, or because if you only been around one white person from pre-K to the eighth grade, that's kind of crazy. High school might have been different, but still, like just being in that
Yeah,
environment.
no, it wasn't a culture shock, and you touched on it. Moreover, because again, I went to private high school, which was again
Oh, okay,
the
yeah,
opposite of kind of what that was. And so by the time I got going to college, I had that unique experience, and I grew up in this world, went to school in this
yeah,
whole world, was from K through 8th, grew up in an environment where it was predominantly minorities, and then went to school in a private, Catholic school where I wasn't Catholic, where I was the only black dude in most of my classes. And so for me, again, going reflecting back on kind of that outlier perspective of what we talked about,
yeah,
I was able to have a perspective of what it was exclusively being around people that looked like me, but also exclusively being around people where I was the only one that looked like myself.
yeah,
Being able to articulate myself in multiple different ways of when I don't have support in certain areas or people who are going to reinforce my preconceived notions, but also being in an environment where you don't necessarily have to be as articulate in your emotions because a lot of people share those same emotions with you. And I think that was the biggest thing for me that helped were when I got to college like Washington State and Brigham Young University, which a lot of people ask me, well, how did you operate it there? Well, I already did that. You know what I'm saying?
yeah. He did his
So
own
I
thing.
think, yeah, that was the big thing for me, which I learned where, you know how it is playing football, the politics and all those type of things that happen. I felt like for both my twin brother and I, we experienced, how to, the realities of the world, the
Yeah,
realities of like how things will be and stuff like that. So it wasn't much of a shock where you already know how you can be treated, how you essentially have to operate to create opportunity for yourself.
yeah.
So yeah, all those things were a conglomerate that helped, for it not to be a culture shock by the time I got to college.
But we went to Mountain View. So no, don't let me find out Spencer James was modeled after you with the All American show now.
It's crazy. You know how many
They
people,
ripped your story out.
hey, you know how many people send me pictures like I don't think I look like the guy at all, but I get that a lot that I
Yeah. Where your brother was at on all this? The twin brother. Did he go to the same high school? Did he play
Yeah, he
ball
went
too?
to, and that goes back to kind of again the uniqueness. Is I mean, you're already your twin, which already makes you, your experience
Yeah.
in life is already, different than most people, right? I think that was a huge piece as well, where I was was able to do a lot of those type of things is that I always had a built-in friend. I had a built-in
Yeah.
person who experienced the same things that I experienced more than anyone else can. He looked like me.
Yeah.
You know, people he could pass for me and vice versa. And so that's a huge piece where, when we got through and in K through 8th, we were the leaders in the class. We were people,
Yeah.
by default. Also, I got, again, we talked about outliers. I got held back in the first grade. So I went from being one of the youngest in the class to now being the oldest in the class, but also having another person in that class. And so I'm walking in and I'm already confident with a lot of things that I'm doing because I
Yeah.
already have somebody else that's with me. And so, that was able when I got to that private high school and stuff like that, I already I didn't have to worry about having a friend. I didn't have to worry about any of those type of things. And so now my twin brother has been there with every step of the way and has helped me in each thing and still does.
Yeah. Did he play football too?
Played football. We did exactly the same stuff. We
Everything?
wrestled in high school, ran track in high school.
Did he go to Washington State too, or did
Yeah,
that when like the paths kind of separated?
yeah, he went to Wazoo, and then when we all when we transferred, I transferred to Brigham Young University. He transferred to University of Idaho, which is
Okay.
5 miles up the road from Washington State.
Yeah. Well, what position was he playing?
So he was corner and safety as well.
Oh, okay. Well, both
Yeah,
y'all
so I was
had
gonna say, yeah,
no
so
no fly zone.
fly zone. Yeah,
How was that when you was at BYU? That was like the first time you was without him. How was that?
that it's crazy. I think I was just telling someone where I felt like that was the first time ever in my life that I experienced um how it felt to be by yourself per se,
Like
right? Like
how everybody else felt.
like how everyone else feels. Like I literally, I was just talking to a friend of mine where I was like, that was the first time because you have to keep in mind that like you always had someone that
Yeah.
understood your perspective and things like that. And so I think that was a necessary piece for both my twin brother and I. But also it just put it in perspective how my outlook on the world is somewhat different than quote unquote the normal person. And so it was cool though, because like again, the way we were raised very independently.
Yeah.
Sense of we've always had to figure out a way to kind of do things and stuff. So it was a new perspective, but it was fun. It was cool.
No, that's what's up. I got twin girls now, so I'm excited to see how they continue to progress. Because I can wait though. They can slow down a little bit, but they in ninth grade. It's already a wrap now. Once high
Man,
school,
that's good.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's gone. But just enjoying being present, enjoying the moments now. But I definitely see what you talk about with them because they always. It's just that some stuff that we don't even understand as parents. Like you just see them when you seeing them and the stuff they're doing. Like they can fight, they can do all this stuff. At the end of the day, they always kind of like there. It's like that comfort, that safety net, like you said.
No, for sure.
Um, and I guess it's kind of like it ties into that, but with going, like your pre-high school experience, well, no, your high school experience and pre-high school, then going to college and being in the entrepreneur space where it's not too many it's not too many minorities in the tech space, especially dual tech space, federal government, probably
Yeah.
even less that in AI. Like what's like the most like racist thing you've experienced? Um, so, even with all that being said, with the background that you experienced from, like you said, from middle school down and then going to a different high school, Washington State, BYU, totally different cultures, totally different like settings. Like, what's the most like racist thing that you've experienced?
Yeah. And I think it's a really good question, and it's good that you're asking that too, where it could be articulated because again, we always talk about like not that we always talk about it, but the experience of racism is obviously something that it's a reality has happened to a lot of minorities and people in general.
Yeah,
But a lot of times when people think about racism, who aren't necessarily people who are experiencing it, it's a form of covert racism, which they're
mhm,
traditionally, when I say they're, white people in America is what we're speaking, what we're talking about in this, umbrella of America and our experience of being, or my experience more where we're being Black American. It's not this stereotypical form of overt racism where someone's being hung or someone's being pulled from
yeah,
the back of a truck. It's usually going to be something that you only see it if you experience it. And a lot of times, the perpetrators are the ones that are not black or not minorities. And so it's something that they don't necessarily see nor recognize. And so a lot of times what we're seeing more often now is that it's a mute point that we're just complaining or we're pulling some victim card or something like that.
Yeah.
The reality is that it's real, and it happens on a daily basis. I think the biggest thing for me that I'll really point on, moreover, to throughout this conversation, but it's moreover my experience of being a black CEO. When I first
Mm.
started, my first company was a smart city gov tech company. So I sold to government, I sold to municipalities.
Yeah.
And 90% of the time when I showed up at a conference where I was an exhibitor, I can distinctly remember a specific time, and I won't say the location, but it was in Utah, right?
Yeah.
And also, and then the same thing happened just, as people are listening to it, some people be like, well, yeah, that makes sense. It was in Utah. It happened. It
They're
happened
like, it's Utah, duh.
It happened in Maryland. It happened in multiple different
Yeah.
states where where people like me was the predominant color, and when I wasn't. And so it's a common thing that has happened to me in multiple different places in different demographics and has stayed constant. But I think that the biggest one that I can talk about, moreover, was one that happened in Utah where it's something that's subtle, right? Because it's very covert, but it's an indication of how it happens in multiple different aspects and why I feel like it's more difficult for people that look like us. And it was me showing up, and when I showed it to the convention, I get questioned of, am I in the right location?
Mm.
What am I doing here? And I'm the CEO, right? And
Yeah.
routinely I get asked, are you the CEO? Are you in the right location, right? And so I show up to this event, and I have a badge and everything. And I get pulled to the side by security and ask me if I'm in the right location. And the reason why something like that is it seems small, but the reason why something like that is huge because I think people have this idea that there's like this selective form of perception that
Mm.
people can turn it on and turn it off. But when you have an implicit bias, you don't know you have it, hence why it's considered implicit. It's a subconscious bias. And
Yeah.
so when I'm talking to people and they go, oh, well, like that's a small thing. Well, that's not small if I'm going to raise capital and people have those preconceived notions. That means someone like me is going to have a more difficult experience raising capital. That means someone like me is going to have a more difficult experience securing, companies for, selling my product to
Yeah.
specific companies. That means someone like you is going to have a more difficult time across the board because the reality is it tends to people who are in positions of power tend to have those preconceived notions for people that look like me. And so
Mm.
although something like that may seem at the surface level subtle, that's not subtle. That is an indication of the institutional racism that a lot of people talk about, but don't necessarily articulate in that matter.
Yeah.
So I know I digressed a little bit, but yeah, that's a small little thing, and again, it happens, on a daily basis. There's a lot of more worse
No,
things.
I'm about to say that's why it's big because it's recurring. You know what I'm saying? Like no matter what. You probably had the hair then too, didn't you?
And that's a whole nother one. Right?
Yeah,
That's a whole,
you were wicked out there too, you know?
yeah, yeah, so yeah, yeah, it's a recurring thing, and you gotta adjust and you gotta play the game to a certain extent, but also you gotta draw a line in the sand as well. You gotta draw a line in the sand because I think there's how I've seen a lot of Black Americans. I'll speak from my experience, men and entrepreneurs per se. I'll leave it at that. I can if I want go deeper and tell people harsh stories and things like that, but I think
Yeah.
that story is important because it shines a light on the form of racism that happens to a lot of people that a lot of non-Black Americans, non-minorities feel like it's something that's very minute, something that's very small, but it's not. And actually, in my opinion, is even more difficult to navigate around because it's something that you can't necessarily over or objectively prove, right?
Yeah.
They're not coming saying F all Black people and blah, blah, blah. No, it's something that's subtle. It's something that you can't prove, but you know that
Yeah.
this preconceived notion affects you adversely. And so yeah, it's definitely something that's worth understanding.
Well,
And
that makes a lot of sense too, because damn, I can't forget the guy name. He like the Godfather of Silicon Valley, black dude. At least that's what his nickname is. Investor. He with A16Z now. I think he's still with him, but older black guy. But I was talking to him one time, and he was like, the thing that pissed him off the most throughout his career, and as he's advising and investing in other companies that have like minority founders or whatnot, is that
Yeah.
when we, as black males or black females walk into a room pitching our idea
Mhm.
and we get a no, it's not the same no or the same reception as if our counterparts, our white counterparts would get. Because
Right.
if a white guy gets a no, he knows in his heart that, well, his idea just wasn't good, or
Right.
the investors just didn't see any value.
Right.
But as a black man, a black person going into there and you get a no, you don't know if your idea wasn't good or it's just because you was black.
Right.
Yeah. And
Right.
he
No,
he
for
kind of
sure.
talked about that dynamic. He was like, so it's a mental game at the same time. So you may be going to try to rework or try to rethink and tinker with a product that don't need to be when the product was never the issue.
Which inherently puts you against the eight ball
Yeah.
already. You're already starting a race. You're always I always explain it as we're running a 100-meter dash, right? And there's a ball and chain, there's hurdles in your lane, and you're racing against your counterparts who essentially are in the race, right? But there's not a ball and chain, there's not a hurdle, and then they get to the end of the race and they're like, "Well, you should have pulled yourself up for the boot with your bootstraps. You should have had these cleats on. You would have been good." The reason
Yeah, I did
did it,
it.
right? And the reason, but again, they don't see it. And
Yeah.
and the reason why I think that and I'll just kind of explain too for those who are viewers and listeners, when we just say, well, because we're black, and people are like, here we go again, is this the victim card? No, what we're saying is that when I go to pitch my company, and I know that it's a reality. I have preconceived notions. We all have preconceived
Yeah.
notions. But when I go to pitch my company, and there's statistically speaking, not a lot of people that look like me, and a lot of your systems, because you had the benefit to operate in a world of people who look like you don't have to think about certain things.
Yeah.
You see me, there's certain things that come into play. And you don't have the experience that I do of working with people like you because every time I go up in life, I work with more people like you. You work with less people like me every time you quote unquote go up in life. And so you
Mm.
do not have the same experience nor the capability that I have in having to operate in a world with people who don't look like me. And so when you tend, and it's not all the time, right? I don't want to overgeneralize, but most of the time, when you see people who look like me when they are raising capital, those preconceived notions are not controlled. And
Yeah, no,
so when you say no, it can be because you think that I'm not capable. You think that it'll be difficult for me to scale a company. All those type of things come into play. And so when you say no, I'm as a recipient saying, well, is it because my product, which I know it can't be the product because I know that I'm already behind the eight ball. So I'm going to know my product more than anyone. But let's just entertain that. Okay, product can potentially be one, is it sustainable can be two, is it a big enough market, all those traditional type of things. With if that's the case, I'm all for it, right? But when it becomes those implicit things that you're saying no but you don't have a reason for it, that's
yeah.
when people are saying, well, is it because of X? That's what I wanted to explain because a lot of times a lot of people, well, here we go with this. No, it's
Yeah, like, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
that we're operating in a
I mean,
world,
that's the natural response for most people. Like, oh, because it's
right?
again, that's part of that implicit, bias or whatever, understanding perception kicking in again. It's like that same old song again. They're never gonna change. When you get over it,
Right, and then it's like this double edge because it's like you're asking for my thoughts on, and I'm not saying you, but I'm saying they're asking like, does this exist, et cetera. And then when you explain it, it's kind of like dismissive. Here we go, they're pulling the victim
Yeah.
card. But it's funny because it's like what has happened in this past term of this quote unquote reverse racism. It's like the moment you get an inkling of feeling like something is not for you, all hell breaks loose.
Oh man, yeah. So
Um,
it's a
but, but
wrap.
but it's something that has categorically happened and has been ingrained in the fabric of our country. But you're still like, no, I don't know. But one little thing of like DEI, it's oh no, this is crazy, right? And
Yeah,
so
definitely.
say it's
Like,
not real. You can't say it's a sentiment that you don't feel. I digress.
nah, you good. No, I mean, I think it's a lot, especially for a lot of people that's looking to raise capital or looking to even get into entrepreneurship or probably heard it, like just knowing some like the landmine, some of the things to expect. I mean, I'm pretty sure they probably expect it already, but I mean, whether or not they want to go down that journey, they can always looking for advice. They can always reach out and ask questions, you, me, whoever. But I guess we will kind of go past that piece. But in that same vein, though, like when we doing too much, we do a lot of things. You multiple companies doing all these things. You trying to stay on top of your fitness. You're still trying to have fun. You're still trying to do these things and enjoy life. Like how are you managing staying like that focused, that ambitious, that dog tenacious personality, but also, like maintaining the relationships in a somewhat good standard with like whether it's, like girlfriend, wife, whether it's family and friends, but like just all that, like because it's a lot. Entrepreneurship it take everything.
It is. I think the biggest piece is having a good partner, right? Like
Mm,
that's one of the biggest pieces, because it's having a good partner and then also having a good team of people around you. The reason why all that stuff is important as far as one of the good partners, like that's the person you see every day. That's going to be the person
yeah,
that's going to be your best friend. That's going to be the person that you can vent to. That's going to understand the world you live in that nobody else understands. And so I think, that's the first piece that helps me personally as far as my balance. I haven't necessarily, and then in addition to that, I haven't necessarily been, to church more recently. But I'm a religious person, and
yeah,
I keep God as a centerfold in my life, and so I think that's another piece that I've always leveraged on and lean on for sure. And then that last piece, I think it's knowing who you are.
mm,
And the reason why all those things as a conglomerate helps with balancing those things when doing too much is because when you know who you are, you spend less time worrying about the existential pieces of things, worrying about how you look towards other people. When you're an entrepreneur,
yeah,
you have to get out there. You're doing this podcast. We have to put ourselves out there. You
yeah,
have to make decisions and make choices where you're not in this analysis paralysis predicament. In order to do that, or what helps in doing that is when you know who you are, where you don't have to worry about what you look like towards other people. And so that's a piece that has allowed me to be comfortable in my skin. And so in doing that, I can look in the mirror. I know who Kamel Greene is. And then I have
yeah,
those pieces that also help me navigate and maintain that balance of my family, friends, partner, and God. And so that's
yeah.
really my recipe of how I can maintain that balance of navigating this world where we're doing all too much.
No, I mean definitely. Now, there's that one saying: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Something like that. Like so, for this, the journey that you've been on, you think you've been better off having that partner versus being solo to be able to maniacally focus on task at hand and go. And you needed that, like
I
you
think
know,
so for me, I think there's a point in time where you need to go fast, and there's a point in time where you need to make adjustments, where you need to be more methodical in your approach, right? Because
yeah,
it's a marathon, not a race. And Barack Obama, I was just actually listening to something he spoke on, and he essentially, and I won't say it exactly, but the point in which he talked about is that any person who wants to be the best in something or be elite in something, there's going to be a time period where you're not going to be the best friend, you're not going to
yeah,
be the best father, you're not going to be the best mother, and you're probably going to need to do it alone.
yeah,
I agree 100%. That's always been one of my pieces. It was I always levered this. There's this class I took, and it was organizational behavior class in graduate school, and we kind of looked at the Hurricane Katrina incident and how it could have been done better. And
mhm,
ultimately, it came down to, there's a point in time where collaboration is needed, and there's a point in time where there needs to be something done in more of an authoritative approach. I told you how, my last formal paycheck was 2021, right? Well, at that point
yeah.
in time, I needed to move fast. I needed to get something done fast. And when I need to get something done fast, I'm gonna do it alone.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that that's the best for everyone, but at that point in time, collaboration is something that's going to slow me down. Now,
That's
again,
what that I mean. That's what it works. You
that's what
know you know I can get it done with this. It's a sacrifice. I mean,
100.
Barack basically said it. Kobe used to say, in order to be the best, you have to sacrifice something.
You're going to have
Like the Jordan rules. People gonna think you an asshole, but hey, but they won. They got rings on their fingers. You know.
exactly. Exactly. No, no, you're right. And as I talk out loud, it gets back to that point where you ask, like, well, was there something that happened when you hit that age 30, et cetera? No, it was a conglomerate, and that was one of those points where it's like, okay, I'm here now. I think I understand how this process works. I did a lot of things alone, like
Yeah.
entrepreneurship, raising capital, all those type of things. Then it got to a point where it's okay, but I want to make sure that this is sustainable. And
Mm.
that's when I made that adjustment. So I think as I talk out loud, it's understanding and having the discernment to know when and how to move. There's no one shoe fits all. I think it all depends, right? On when which it does, right? That's why we have gears in a vehicle. We have
Yeah.
your first gear, second gear, third gear, fourth gear, and so on. And you need a specific gear for specific time, for specific area on the road, et cetera. And so that's how I look at kind of approaches and theories and things like that of, there's a time and place for when you need to do something. And, at that specific time early on, I needed to learn fast and I needed to make things happen fast. And so I did things alone. And now that I feel like I have a good bedding and a good setting, this is where I need a team so that we can grow something sustainable and impactful and lucrative.
No, I mean that. Yeah, I mean that pretty much that sums it up. Like I might just have to end on that. Well, not end the show, but in that kind of that realm of things. We about to get into get into some more fun stuff. So, like, do you believe in dinosaurs? Major tangent.
That's a great transition. 1000%. 1000%.
1000%. Like, so, like, you sent me a post a while ago, and you was like, we need to discuss. So we got to discuss it now. I mean, we will discuss it now, like just like in whatever detail. But like, what's your thoughts on dinosaurs? Like, why did they go extinct? Where did they come from? We mentioned. I know my personal. I kind of touched on a little bit. You sent the
Yeah.
post like 65 million years ago, a spacecraft killed the
Yeah.
dinosaurs or something like that, and it was basically us humans. Like
Right.
my theory or my belief is somewhere around it's centered around there, but like kind of what's like yours in that sense?
Yeah. Well, one, I categorically believe in dinosaurs. I think there's a tremendous amount of science that supports that dinosaurs were here. Um,
So
uh,
no 3D printed fossils buried in the
No,
thing,
no,
so you can come.
pretty awesome. I think there's there's a point in time where you should like science. People forget that like science itself is a theory. Like science is you essentially it's like the scientific method of
Yes, it's
things.
proving something out. Yeah,
It's proving something. It's theorizing and then trying to find, a confirmation on it or something that destroys that initial theory. And I think that there's an overwhelming amount of data points as well as, information that suggests that dinosaurs were here at one point. So I think that I'll kind of preface it, my belief with that I think that it's been a lot of science to prove that they're here. Now, how they got here. Now that I lean into religion, I feel like a lot of times people look at science and they believe, and not everyone, but for the most part, what I see is that it's like this either or fallacy. We're like,
yeah, it got to be one or the other. You
right, it
can't
has to
be.
be one or the other, and I don't think so. I think if anything, like even when it comes to aliens, right? I think if anything my belief in the Lord and the Holy Bible, et cetera, being a Christian, I think that there's a lot of information that it doesn't say that like when I look at 7 days, right? If people go and they look at Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, et cetera, and you look at the creation story, like 7 days didn't have to be seven 24-hour periods.
Yeah,
That's how and again this is how I interpret the Bible and things like that, which everybody else has their own autonomy to do it in their own way, but there was animals, there were flying creatures, there was a lot of different things before humans.
yeah,
So when looking at that creation story, who's to say that that's not when dinosaurs were here? And so how they got here, I think, however they got here, I don't explicitly know, but I know they got here from God.
yeah,
And then secondly, I know that they are here. Now, the next question that you kind of asked is like the theory of like why are they no longer here? Why are they extinct? I don't know. I think that it could obviously have been from an asteroid, or it could have been humans coming from a different planet. I've lately been leaning more towards that. I also don't believe that that takes away from the creation story, nor Lord,
yeah,
as in our God. But I've been leaning more towards that because one, I don't believe that we are the only beings here on this planet. I feel like it's fairly naive to know how big the our solar system and the solar systems outside of
Yeah.
our galaxy to believe that we are the only beings here. I feel like that's very, very naive in and believing that.
On this planet or in the universe? You think there's other beings on the planet?
I think that there's other beings on this universe. I'll save that conversation for another time as far as on the planet. But I'll just what I'll just say is that if there's other beings in this universe, it would be far-fetched to not believe that
Yeah,
there cannot be is what I would say other beings on this planet.
on this planet. Yeah, like somewhere around the line, they made their way here. Or it was already here. It might
Yeah,
that
no, for
whole
sure. I save getting into, again, like I said, there's some certain things I'll have, I'll talk about, behind closed doors and certain things.
yeah,
I'll just leave it as I do believe that there's other beings in outside of this universe, and it would be far-fetched to believe that that it's impossible for those beings to be here.
yeah. So like, what's your
I know we're supposed to go into a fun one and it still end up going to deep.
nah, you get like, I mean, it kind of leads into that, but
Yeah.
like, what conspiracy or theory are you most fascinated with right now?
Um. I don't know. I think that's to me. I have a whole different idea on even what conspiracy is defined as and all those type of things. I think that the biggest thing that I'm more I
Well, I
would
guess any unproven,
yeah.
ambiguous kind of thought.
Yeah, I think the biggest one for me right now is centered around the moon landing.
Mm,
I think like that kind of opens up that opens up all the things that we were just talking about, right?
yeah,
About life and our galaxy and what's out there and what's not out there and things like that, and the belief of like I mean of we landed on the moon, but then like there's been attempts, we've landed other things on the moon. Now all of a sudden we can't stand, robots up correct and all these type of things. And this was like in the 60s of
yeah,
on the moon, and it's kind of like, all right, like, so again, I don't, until proven otherwise, I think, we definitely landed on the moon for sure. However, it does beg the question, like, okay, then like outside of funding and all these type of things, like, what's the deal?
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
why haven't we been back? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think any person, I think that's a legitimate.
Well, what y'all see, or
Right.
if
You know what I'm saying? It's just like, oh, we have this, we have advanced technology, we have advanced money, we're doing all these, not advanced money, we have a lot more money in relativity to what we were able to do then compared to what we're able to do now. They're talking about computers where as big as
yeah, like
multiple.
whole
Now,
apartment
yeah,
buildings.
your whole phone is more powerful than the whole, and I'm like, okay, so with that being said, I get, people are like, well, from a funding standpoint, NASA, we didn't have as much funding, but it's like, okay, from that standpoint, even based off relativity, we should have still. But so there's a lot of things that go into that. So I think that's the biggest thing because that opens the door to a lot of things that we talked about, right? Because
Yeah,
that is the furthest we've been outside of our mainland Earth. And so, as human beings,
yeah, like physically, like a
right,
physical
right,
foot
right.
on ground.
Exactly. And so I think that's one of the biggest things because that leads into multiple other different conversations.
No, would you do like the cryo freezing, like the body preservation, where you could
No,
maybe wake up 200 years from now and all that
no, because
stuff?
no, I wouldn't because like for me, the way I look at life is, every like the Lord put me here for a reason. And um, I'll let it take its course,
Yeah,
and I can't wait to, I could wait, but when I meet my creator, I meet my I meet my creator, and I think there's a balance, right? Because like that, like with anything, like yeah, I like I talk to family members and I try to eat organic and I try to do those
yeah.
things, and then the first response is like, "We gonna die anyway," and I'm like, "No, I'm
Right.
100%, right? Like yes." We are going to die anyway, but it's kind of like that same logical fallacy is like, okay, well, why not put the most optimal gas in my vehicle? The car is not going to
Yeah,
run forever. I know it's not, but it should, right? for the most part, if you do what you're supposed to be doing, it should run for a lot longer and it should treat you a lot better. And that's how I look at my body as well, right?
Yeah.
I want to make sure that I put the most optimal fuel in my body. And yeah, 1000% anything can happen. All those things are 100% true, but I feel better when I'm eating better and I'm working out and I'm doing those type of things and I'm putting fuel into it. The reason why I preface the question you just asked with that is that many people can also look at that same, logic and say, well, you're doing these things to essentially preserve, to extend.
Yeah, to extend your life anyway
Right.
already.
What's the difference between, freezing your body and seeing if they have technology to help therefore extend? I think
Mhm.
that there's just levels to it. And there's a level in which I won't do where I feel like that's now manipulating what the Lord has done. Um,
Mhm.
and I can understand the pushback where people would say, okay, well, that's what vitamins do, right? I can totally get that as well. But that's why I've made a decision with that, where I think that, yeah, in the grand scheme of the spectrum, it's all about those are all activities that preserve. However, I think there's a threshold that I've drawn a line in the sand with, and when it's my time, it'll be my time.
So you're not. I mean, what if re-engineering, reverse engineering
Yeah.
all the nerfing and buffering that that they have put on us. They all the different
No,
foods
no,
and chemicals to
it's a,
shorten.
and again, and I'll say this, right? Like, and this is why I led in the conversation, right? I'm always learning, right? And so, with that being said, there's always if you're someone that's always learning, you will contradict yourself
Yeah.
in certain
Oh,
aspects.
easily. It's not meant to. The goal isn't to always be right. Like you
No,
say, the goal is
100%.
always just to optimize and learn and go from
100,
there.
100%. So I say that in the sense of, there, who knows? Maybe you get
Yeah.
years from now, and I'm like, nah, I'm with all that, right? And so for right now, no, I think based off what I know now, based off my belief system now, I think there's certain things of like, hearts and building that in the lab, and like say something happens and somebody's like, well, okay, so you got a fake heart, you got fake lungs, but all of a sudden you don't want to freeze yourself for 200 years. And again, it goes back to, I think, the base how I see things right now. There's a level to it, right? There's a spectrum of preservation, right? Re-engineering, kind of what they did, etc. Again, it's all things that we as human beings have went through, rather artificially, or not. And yeah, that's where I kind of draw the line and saying, but who knows? It could be 8, 7 years from now. And Alvin did it. Alvin was like, I looked at his thing. He's been freeze for 5 years.
Yeah.
The modern technology where they're like, no, we know how to, unfreeze this person without the body. You saving the blood vessels and all these type of things, and you be ready to rock and roll. Who knows? But right now, no.
It's funny. I seen I went. You could tell I went down a rabbit hole on this one time, but like, I might have been like on the Stairmaster or something. I don't know, but just going down. But it introduced the idea. I don't know if it's actually in practice. It's like micro dosing, like
Mhm.
the freezing, where you're supposed to get 8 hours of sleep a night anyway. So you get in like almost like the little, how T.O. used to get in the little chamber to heal his
Yep,
body
yep.
and stuff, but like
Microbiome chamber.
yeah, you actually get in one of these where you actually kind of like unconscious, like in that preservatory state for
Mhm.
8 hours, and then you come out. That way you're not missing years. You're you're unconscious for the amount of time that you will be asleep anyway. So like
Mhm.
over time, so 3 days would be a day. So 100
Yeah,
days, you know what I'm saying? So 300 days would be like 100. So it's like the theory is that if you do that over time so many times, you could add that
yeah.
life back on you. It was an interesting idea,
Well, I think that, no, I did. I didn't read too much into that, but I did. You see a little post or
Yeah,
like that, and I did say, no, I think all those things are. I feel like the fact that there's some, if that's something, if that technology becomes something that's been tested and is something that has a high likelihood of
yeah,
success. I think that's great that those opportunities are there. I do. I had a friend, the guy who is trying to live forever, right? I
yeah,
forget his name, right? I have a friend, and she worked with him for some time. Um, I'll digress on that because they didn't give me
yeah.
rights to talk on that. But what I would say is that I think there's a level of when you end up spending time so much in trying to preserve that you forget in being present. And I
Be
feel like
prep, yeah,
that's the main balance, right, that I want to maintain. Because, like, even with that, again, you just said it kind of high level, right? It could be a lot more things that I missed, but even with doing a lot of those things, it's like, okay, well, you spent so much time trying to preserve your life, you didn't live life,
you
right?
didn't live nothing, yeah,
And so I think there's a balance with that too, right? Like you, like it again, the yin and the yang constant, and
yeah,
with doing too much, I think like the symbolism behind it, the motif behind it is like, well, how do you balance that? And for me, it's like and that's what I found myself even with entrepreneurship. There was a point in time where I'm like, I had to take a step. This is prior to being 30. I had to take a step back and be like, bro, like you missed so and so's birthday. You forget texting people back. You doing all these type of things. And preface, it's not that I don't, and I'm digressing right now, but it goes hand in hand with doing too much, right? Where
yeah,
like I think that's doing too much. I think the whole micro all that type of stuff. Because like, okay, well, like, yeah, you're doing that, but for what reason?
yeah.
You're
For
getting
why?
right. You know what I'm saying? And so and other people can have a legit reason for it, but I think again it goes back to when you are doing like the reason for me per se, doing much is one thing, doing too much is another thing. And when you do
Yeah,
too much, it doesn't always mean that it's bad, but sometimes too much can be bad.
yeah,
And I think that there's a balance to that where I've done so much, but when you do too much, sometimes that can take away because life is about trade-offs. For every, an opportunity cost, which is trade-offs. Like so for every time you're doing one thing, you're missing out on the other thing. And so when you are doing too much, I think having that focus on the balance of what you want and what's going to be impactful for your life. Because if I'm spending too much time microdosing, or I think that's what you
yeah, yeah,
almost
yeah. It's like a
right,
micro
right, right.
dosing
I'm getting
life.
right. I'm getting some time, but then it's like there's a lot of things I have to put focus, make sure I'm sleeping correct, I'm doing all these things
Yeah,
correctly. Where it's like you might look back and be like, dang, like it was cool doing that and I'm here now, but like I don't even remember, going to so and so's birthday and all those
yeah,
type of things, which in my opinion, for me, like those things are more important because that's what you're quote unquote wanting to live longer for is to have those relationships, what is, in my opinion, what life is about. And so if you find yourself doing too much of the other, you may lose that trade-off on what
yeah.
we're doing it for in the first place.
Like it's all fascinating but at the same time scary. But plus the pods too. I'd be worried about, man. What if this junk don't open when it's supposed to, and I'm just stuck?
What if you find yourself in a nuclear, nuclear
Yeah,
now?
you wake up in apocalypse. You're the only one in them.
Or you wake up, you like, wait, I thought I made it past this. They're like, nah, big dog. It was World War III, and
Yeah,
and they shot a nuclear bomb, and your pod got blown up. And other
yeah,
people who weren't in the pod found a way to kind of navigate out of it. You think you're doing something special, and you're relying on human nature in the world
yeah.
to preserve you in a pod for over 100 years.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a lot of stress.
The regulations didn't get passed for those small
Right,
nuclear
right.
facilities. We ain't have enough power
Yeah,
to power them
yeah.
things.
The AI bots voted on unplugging you. You're like,
Yeah,
what?
your junk get hacked or something, and
Yeah. I mean, like it's and for me, it's kind of like at one point we like, and it's not that everyone is operating off of this thesis or this belief, but it's like, well, you don't trust what the world has done, but at the same time, you're gonna trust that the world is gonna put you to sleep and then wake you up. It's kind of like
like, yeah, come on, man. Yeah, I
I
mean,
mean, and so yeah, so I mean, but you never know, right? I mean, we live in a world every day tacitly agreeing to all these things, and so you never know.
what was your favorite subject in school?
History.
I said, okay. I asked because I was going to say something. I was like, you seem to be, but I was like, let me ask to make sure. Because I
It,
know you always share that one app. Was it like Learn Politia or
oh yeah, I forgot the name of it, but it's a good one. I
yeah, I
and
think it's like Polita or Polita, something like
yeah,
that. Learned. Yeah.
yeah, no, I listen to it. I listen to it often. I think, and so yeah, from like K through 8 high school and stuff, it was history, and then in college, to be quite honest with you, philosophy. as
Yeah,
was my favorite subject. I studied political science and things like that, but even with that, like there's a lot of philosophy and theory inside of that, right? Because sociology, political science, etc.
oh yeah,
It's
easily.
all theory around a model, right? Even though at BYU it was all data focused, but there was theory around it. But I mean, they were way more data heavy. So like you took a theory class, and the rest was like doing political science with data and stat
Yeah,
and all that type of stuff. But the reason why it was always history is that for me, in order to know your future or to help navigate, right? We talked about this navigation. It's good to know the past, right? And
yeah,
what I find a lot of times is as a civilization at a macro level, even as individuals at a micro level, we tend to repeat things that has happened. And I feel like what we're starting to miss now as a society is the scope of what happened before. If you can better see what happened in the past, then you can make decisions necessary so you don't repeat those decisions.
yeah.
Every
Because
society,
a lot of stuff is cyclical. It's cycle.
exactly,
It
exactly.
repeats itself.
Right. And so for me at a micro level, I want to be able to learn from that, right? And we talked about kind of learning being a big piece of a lot of different things. Well, how are you learning from it if you're repeating it? And then that's insanity. It's doing the same thing,
Yeah,
with a different result. And so history has always been a big thing because there's a few things. One, help you navigate your future, but also from a power standpoint, like that's another thing we didn't really talk about too much. But power is a big piece, and for me, like the what I've seen with history is the one with the power is the one with the pen. The one with the pen is the one that can dictate what did happen in the past. And so, yes, I listen to that, but I listen to a wide variety of things. You go to my Instagram, I follow conservative pages, I follow liberal pages, I follow both sides because I want to be able to see and decipher from a lot of different things and not kind of fall within that echo chamber reinforcing my preconceived notions. Because again, I have them, we all have them. To me, the best way to check it is to get opposing beliefs, opposing theories, so I can look at it. And I feel like history is a reminder of that because I remember growing up in one school and Malcolm X was the worst person ever. I remember growing up in another school and Malcolm X
he
was
was the goat.
dope, right? And being able to kind of see those different sides, but also making sure that I'm aware so that no one is telling me what history I need to look at and what
Yeah,
history is correct. And so history has always been a big pillar because again, to me, that's a microcosm of the world, right? And we've seen the Ottoman Empire, we've seen the Incan Empire, we've seen the Aztec Empire, we've seen the Roman Empire, and they've all collapsed. And for some reason, people think that, we are um, absolved from the realities of what can happen with that. But we're not going to be absolved for those realities if we don't look at what happened to them. And in my opinion, when I look at the course of history, the reason why a lot of those empires collapse is because their failure to evolve accordingly. They thought that
yeah.
what they were doing was going to continue to work, holding their variables constant. What, in my opinion, is what I feel like we're doing as a society now. And so we're on the verge of that. But I digress in that history was a favorite one for a lot of those different things. And then when I got into to higher education, it was more philosophy because that's a combination of history, but you're taking history and then you're putting the model of a thought, an idea, an ideology behind something. And to me, that's just so fascinating.
What like not era
Mhm.
or dynasty empire, even 60s, 70s, other than today, would you like to have experienced?
Shit. It's very interesting because someone like me didn't necessarily
Now, yeah, I was about to say,
have the same.
assuming,
The
assuming you're
experience.
welcome
Yeah,
and all.
yeah, no, no, for sure. I think for me it would probably be, and I can go back to where I am now. Like
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
can experience
I
it.
mean, like if I say,
Like,
like
give me a
it
week
just,
and I can
yeah,
experience it and come back. Oh,
yeah.
it would have to be. Well, see, now these are the questions that we send each other in the group message because it's gonna be around how I can like make money off of it, etc. Right? Like, go and learn,
Oh, yeah, yeah,
come
easy,
back.
yeah.
But no, it would probably be for me. Like I've always had. And from a historical standpoint, the medieval times have always been
Mm.
something that I've been, interested in feudalism and things like that, which I feel like there's a lot of lost history into that. There's a lot of lost history of like there was a point in time of like we were technological geniuses and then like we
Oh, yeah.
lost it, and that's a whole separate conversation. But it will probably be like Egyptian history. Um,
Mm.
the building, the construction of the pyramids, because I feel like there was so much technology to the point that we can't even understand the technological advances now, what they
Now, yeah.
then. And so I feel like that time period of history that we just don't know. We don't know why there's generators under the pyramid. We don't know why these pyramids across the world were aligned from a
To
solar.
the solar systems and
Yeah,
all the different
yeah,
stuff.
so I think that part of history, if I can go back, there will be so much knowledge that I'll be able to aggregate.
I mean, I would want to go back even if we did have all the answers. Like, I would want to go back to experience it anyway.
No,
Regard.
no, for sure. Just the
That,
answer.
that, that was a fly period of time,
No, no,
well, at least how
100%.
it is perceived,
Oh, 1,000. So yeah, no, it would be the knowledge, but also just the flat out experience of
Yeah,
how the world was then. I mean, that was when like that was the origins of philosophy. That was the
yeah,
origin of language. That was the origin of mathematics. That was the origin of all those type of things. Irrigation systems and farming and tools and language. So yeah, I would love to go back during that time period if I had the
yeah.
opportunity.
No, I agree. Like the medieval times would be interesting, just even though it's probably like the harshest, but just to
Yeah.
kind of like just to see that in real time, how the portrayal of it, and just real
Oh,
time, like
yeah.
on some Game of Thrones ish or something like that. Like just like man, this is actually wild.
Yeah. It'd be 4-year-olds and they'd be the elderly running around dancing.
Yeah, like,
How old are you? What are
yeah,
you?
there ain't no bathrooms or nothing. It's just like
Yeah,
people just walking around. Like it's probably just like a crazy chaos. Like that'll just be interesting just to like see and experience, not necessarily
yeah.
to live in, but just to
It
kind
ain't
of
gonna
like,
get out for sure.
yeah, yeah, we
I
can
like
get out.
like an hour just in the woods
Yeah,
with some binoculars and seeing what's going on, then I'm out of there. You know? Yeah, mess
they
around.
going. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's wild. Yeah, I would
work
agree.
out.
I say Egypt. Egypt is definitely up there. I also I'm real big on like Asian culture.
Oh yeah.
So like plenty of the dynasties, but um. especially around the time just like with being on Genghis Khan's side.
Yeah.
Not the other side. He was
Yeah.
murdering half the continent. I mean, had the whole damn globe population, but like just or even the Mansa Musa, like just being the Mansa Musa camp.
Dog.
That like that, that'd be that'd probably been like
Oh
cool
yeah.
to see.
And it's interesting. Never mind. That's a separate conversation. Want to build my dynasty. That's how I am, right?
Yeah,
That. And so it'd be cool to kind of get a battle of wits. I done read your book already. I know your plans.
yeah, no,
If that's even if what the book is what you were thinking, right? Again, the one with the powers, the one with the pen.
yeah,
I think those are and that's to me what makes history so cool is that one, especially when you do your own due diligence, when you recently went to Japan, right? Yeah, I'm sure
mhm,
you kind of came with notions and then you looked at it was like, wait a minute, like this is not how it
yeah,
is, right? And so there's a balance of like one getting kind of quote unquote this initial idea around something. Some parts may be true, some parts may not be, but then being able to then go and explore for yourself and learn
yeah,
about it. Like history is just is amazing in the fact that we can be observers at this time period where we are quote unquote at the present and be able to look back, but also know that we at a point in time are going to also be history.
yeah. We're gonna be
And
people gonna be like, man, I want to go back to them 2020s and
right.
2000s was
Right,
crazy.
right. The transition before, right? We will be, we would be, in my opinion, I think that we as humans are going to be that unique time, that experience, both how it was before technology was where it was, and then after. And so I believe that we are going to be a huge marker in history because before us, right? I always say it's kind of like being a millennial and really being a 90s millennial per se, but you're like me. I was born in 1994. I experienced riding my bike outside and not having a phone, right, and all that type of stuff. But I also experienced like being in school with Instagram and having those type of things. And it's
Yeah,
funny because when I talk to like my older millennial friends and brothers and family and members and stuff like that, a lot of times like they just experience without, right? It was just like like that experience of like how was, with no phones and all that type of stuff. And then you talk to Gen Zs, right? And they just experience with the Gen Zs, but like there's like a small group of millennials where it's like we kind of experience both. Like I experienced riding my bike with my friends and the street lights, but at the same time, we had phones in high school and we had social media in high school,
Nah.
type of stuff too. I feel like that is a microcosm of how I feel like we as a generation on this spectrum where we are going to be the only ones that experience how it was having not advanced technology where I feel like we're going to, and then advanced technology. And
Yeah.
there'll be no one
Well,
that has had that experience.
well, I
Go
mean, even from a history standpoint, if you looking back, like when we look back at these dynasties and stuff, they're like over 100 years or so, you know.
Yep.
So even when we look back, it's gonna be not even Gen Z. Is I mean, our that point that you're talking about, that inflection point, that one that swings the pendulum is gonna be from like 2050 to 1850.
No, no
You
wonder.
know what I'm saying? So
Yeah,
like
yeah,
so to your point, it's gonna be like that 200-year period where it was nothing, then we had a little something to this boom, to what all the movies portray, and then boom, when there was dinosaurs and shit, like it
yeah.
as time goes on, our era just expands but at the same time it gets bigger but
No,
smaller.
no, you're spot on, right? And that is the point, like of like kind of it's a reminder of how to look at things because again, when we even look at dynasties, we just be like the Ming dynasty or like
Yeah,
the Incan dynasty or like the Roman, period. And we don't realize that in that small sentence we're combining thousands of years into one.
yeah.
Right. And so to your point is,
I mean, I think our dynasty might be like the American dynasty, like from what 1776 or whenever,
yeah.
whenever,
That's,
I think
that's
that's
even
going to
if
be.
they, no, you're right. My fault. I'm cutting you off. But that's even if they look at it like that, where it could be a point where, like, in 1,000 years from now, it won't even be American. That's like what we're saying. They were
Yeah,
just
it might not be.
put us all together, and they're just like, yeah, the Y2K earthly dynasty, right?
Yeah,
They're
something.
just like
Yeah,
because they're not making that subtle delineation between America and Japan and America and this. They're like, y'all was all on the same stuff, right? And we just kind of just like that was just the time period, right? In 2,000 years, and they don't even
hey, the way it's going, it may be the Trump dynasty. The way he changing everything, he
right,
he
right,
he be there rewrote the history books that we're gonna mark this
right.
time and period.
One with the power is the one with
The
the
one, the one with the power. Whoever win the war writes the history.
exactly. Exactly. And so yeah, and that's another, you look at history now and you go back and talk to people like it wasn't like that. You're like, what?
Yeah, like what?
Yeah.
Yeah, yes, definitely. All right, so yeah, we're gonna wrap it up with the three questions. And then like these a little bit. I mean, they can be rapid fire, you can just one word, or you can kind of explain, or you can kind of get a little bit more thought to it. But the first one is, what habit or action do you resist that you know is good for you?
A habit that I resist that I know is good for me.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a habit, it could be an action, be something that you need to do more of. It don't necessarily have to be a habit, but
And I think the biggest thing is writing things down.
mm,
I mentioned like, oh, I'm doing journalism. I know I need to do it, and
yeah.
I'll probably and I made it. This the new year, right? It's early January. And I told myself I'm gonna write something down every week, and like even last month, I was like I'm gonna do it. I wrote probably like once a month, but I think that's the big thing because again, I talked about all these things about again.
What are you writing down though? Like, are you writing down what you need to do? You writing down your thoughts, or is it just it don't
That's a good
matter?
question. It's how my goal is one to just put things down of what happened. Like just write. Like I don't write with no mission, put things on paper. But then after that, like and I think that is a combination of the reason why I feel like that's important. I've done it before, is that it forces you to reflect when you just start writing, like what's in your head. Like when you're an entrepreneur, you do a lot of things by yourself. It can be a
Yeah,
lone game, right? And so you're just putting things on the paper and it's adding clarity to this chaotic world that you operate in where you're doing too much.
yeah,
So the first piece is just writing things down. The second piece is once you've done that, now creating goals that are measurable so that I can attain that. Again, another thing that we talked about is like, helping us have a better perspective, a better roadmap, a better direction. And again, to want that and to know that that's something that can help you be successful, it'll be wild to not put that on paper so that you can see it as well. And so that's
yeah,
kind of my whole thing is like just getting my thoughts on paper and then creating measurable goals monthly so that I can attain those. And so I
yeah.
think that's one thing that I'm resisting that would be instrumental in success.
Very good. And not including that, the next question is, what's something like as of today that you want to do more of, or you want to do less of?
I want to do more of spending time with family and friends. I want to do less of over focusing on things that may not move the needle, such as, it gets to 2 a.m. and I'm, doing business stuff where if I close my laptop and wake up, it's gonna be fine. I'm gonna,
Yeah, yeah,
I think, as being a younger, I know I'm a quote unquote, I'm a younger guy, but being a younger entrepreneur, I used to just OD, do too
yeah,
much on not going to sleep, staying up to 5 a.m. It was this whole grind thing. I took this approach of football and kind of put it to entrepreneurship.
yeah,
And you hear that, and I feel like people glamorize this whole like dog greed. And you could be a dog, but a dog needs sleep, so a dog could be optimal, right?
yeah.
That's one thing that I learned. And so I think the biggest thing is not overly focusing on, or not putting too much time on certain things that's going to be there the next day.
I mean, it's hard just growing up how we grew up. Like,
So,
the training that we trained is, I mean, it's a hard switch
yep.
to turn off, like, because
So,
most of our success came from that mentality.
and that's one thing we haven't talked about. I think that's you are spot on. Like this whole, you are rewarded by the work you put in, and I think like for the most part that's true. But when you get into the world outside of athleticism and things like that, I've learned real fast that a lot of people who work hard are still in the same
They're
positions.
still in the same spot. Yeah.
They like the whole, and it's not just entrepreneurship, but life in general has
Yeah,
taught.
if I say just life in general,
Yeah,
like,
yeah. Working hard for sure is a principle. I think it's hard to find success outside of that. It's possible, right? But are you even going to be okay with yourself? So working hard is one thing, but it's not a causal relationship. It
yeah,
doesn't equal a success reaction just because you worked hard. And that's one thing that I was taught, right? It was like, if you do it, then you're gonna get on the field and you're gonna play. And you're gonna like, like, no, not necessarily. There's a lot of things that you have to create these opportunities for yourself. And you have to work hard doing it per se, but there's a lot of things that don't necessarily just come with you got to be the first one in the weight room and the last one in the weight room.
no,
To be good. Like you got to be the early bird that wake up for entrepreneurship and the later bird and you're gonna be good. No,
I mean,
a lot of
it's a lot of politicking. It's a lot of intangibles. It's a lot of
things.
it's more than just it's almost like you talk about entrepreneurship, and for all the people out there, entrepreneurs that they know this, and the ones looking into it, they know it. You can have the best product in the world, and a company fail. You got to have marketing. You got to
Yep,
have messaging.
yep.
People got to you got to have a why. People got to you got to solve a pain point. You know what
Mhm.
I'm saying? Like all that same thing translates to life. You can
Yep,
have all the tangible things. You can look good, tall. You can get away with that. In the
yep.
day, you gotta have that other things. You got to be able to move in those dark corners of the earth
And
in
be
the
able to
world.
turn shit to chicken salad.
Yep.
And not a lot of people can do that, are built to do that.
Yeah.
It's possible, but it comes with experiences and it comes with doing things that put your back against the wall that made you uncomfortable. And I think that, in my opinion, any person that wants to have some success in something, you have to be okay with being uncomfortable in certain
Yeah.
predicaments.
Yeah. Definitely. Then so the last question is, what what belief or accepted knowledge are you currently questioning or reworking right now?
That's a really good question. I think the biggest one right now is centered around existentially like honestly, I think it would go back to like what we just said before. I know it's probably not a question, answer people want to hear, but I think it's the realization that there's a lot more things you have to do with outside of just putting in additional effort or just working
Mhm.
hard. It's coming to that realization that you have to be able to politic, right? You have to
Yeah.
be able to get out there and be on social media. You have to be able to do a lot of different things that once said that like those aren't not necessary. No, you have to be able to do multiple different things if you want a certain type of success, in my opinion. Some people may
Yeah.
disagree, but in my opinion, if you want to do that, and the reality is like for me, it's coming to what I'm trying to kind of wrap my head around now is like, okay, then how do I do that while maintaining who I am? Because
Yeah.
there are certain things that I may not want to do. So not losing myself, right? Doing a lot but also maintaining that balance. And we talked about it, right? Having good people around you, knowing who you are, all those type of things. And so I'm carrying that into this new endeavor of, okay, there's a few things I want to do, which is going to make myself uncomfortable, but I have to be a product of my words and a product of my beliefs. And that is, if I want to have this certain type of success, then I need to be uncomfortable. And so this
Yeah.
year is going to be a lot of uncomfortability, but I expect success with that.
But I mean, even to that point, like you said, having the people around you, that's one, I think that's one thing that people probably, at least in my opinion, need to rework as well. Like you need the people around, but those people need to have the mentality or at least the goal or the perspective that you have too. Like
Yep.
you having good people around you can sometimes be a hindrance because they just might all be like yes men or just they not telling you the truth. Even they have good intentions, they mean well, they take care of you, support you, but it's not you're not getting what you actually need, and you only get that from people that's doing what you're doing, going through what you're doing, facing what you're facing. So like these conversations that we're having, like this is having people around you, like me and you talking, like me and Ben talking, like some of the people you see on this podcast. That's kind of like one of the reasons I wanted to have this podcast is to bring it up, like because a lot of people are doing a lot, they're doing too much, and
Hmm.
they feel like they on an island. They feel like they the only ones doing. Like, no, you're not. You,
Yeah.
you,
No,
you ain't the only one. You know what I'm saying? So like,
so tunnel vision. But no,
yeah,
I agree 100%. And you are the company you keep. And to the point that you said, there's a lot of times where, people may have good intentions, but if they don't have that perspective, in my opinion, there's always perspective you can get from people that don't necessarily experience it. However, it gets to a point in time where like it's a diminishing marginal utility where it's like, okay, now what are you gonna how are you gonna help me navigate this situation that you've never experienced? Um,
yeah,
and so I think this is one why I feel like this podcast that you've created is valuable. I'm gonna be tuned in 100% because I want to hear these different perspectives. It's a lonely game, especially being an entrepreneur for the most part when it comes to kind of what you're specifically doing because your head is down and you're like, shoot, it's just, it's me and I'm gonna turn chicken shit into chicken salad. It's refreshing to hear different perspectives, different ideologies, different philosophies on how people navigate doing too much.
yeah. Well, shoot. Well, there you have it. Tell everybody where they can find you, what you're working on, and then we can wrap it up.
Yeah, you can find me at Big Mel Green on Instagram. You know what I'm saying? Tap in. But then also as far as my company's Kamel at fiberx.com or .io, that's fibrx.io. So feel free to shoot me a message. And then, you can always find me on LinkedIn at my first and last name, and that's Kamel Green. So I appreciate you, big dog. This has been awesome.
All right, man. Happy New Year, and we'll be in touch. We'll link up sooner than later.